Brian Kelly recaps LSU's gigantic win at Clemson. We've got what you need to know. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. LSU beat Clemson 17-10. We're all still basking in the afterglow. I gave you my immediate reaction sometime in the early morning hours Sunday. Brian Kelly met with reporters at Clemson's Memorial Stadium after the game. I was able to comb through what he said and glean some things I'd like to share with you here on this bonus pod on this Sunday before LSU turns the page into Louisiana Tech week as the Tigers will look to move to 2-0. By the way, the early line has already been posted. LSU, I believe, is a 37.5-point favorite at FanDuel in that game. So Tigers should have a relative breather in Tiger Stadium this coming weekend compared to what they just had in Clemson, South Carolina. Maybe the thing that Brian Kelly said in the midst of his 16 minutes or so meeting with reporters after the game Saturday night in Clemson, South Carolina, were the two factors, the two components that make up this team that allowed them to win that game Saturday night.
Just step back for a second. The first thing you need to have when you go on the road and play a top 5 team is confidence in the belief that you can do what you need to do. And our guys believed that they were going to win the game. They really did. The next thing is you got composure. We had some mistakes early on, but our guys composed themselves at halftime and played with great composure. And I think the third thing is you got to compete and put the last play behind you and go to the next one. And to me, that's it. Play with great confidence. Know that you can do this. And they believed it. And they played with great composure on the road, and they competed every single play right to the very end there on fourth down.
Confidence and composure. And, you know, a lot of that is the result of having veteran leaders like Garrett Nussmeier and Whit Weeks, who have been named your team captains. Guys like Harold Perkins, who wears the 7 jersey. And then going into the transfer portal also and getting not just great players that fill a need, but great players that fill a need who are also great leaders and who are bought in. And it's a major hat tip to Austin Thomas, to Frank Wilson, to Preston Tiffany, who's the former director of player development, who's got hired by the Philadelphia Eagles, who's played a big role in putting together this transfer portal class. Those guys did an outstanding job, and Brian Kelly as well, an outstanding job of not just identifying talent at positions of need, but also the type of person they've introduced into the program. And that was so evident. Guys like Jack Pyburn and AJ Halsey and Mansour Delane and Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson. And we could go Barry and Brown, go down the list. These are dudes that are great players, but are also bought into what you're doing. And the other is composure. Think about every time in that game something went bad. Think about, like, it's inevitable. You go play a game like that, you're going to face adversity. It doesn't matter who you are, what name you have on the front of your jersey, the logo on your helmet. Like, you go on the road against a top 5 team, you're going to face adversity. It's just going to happen. And for LSU, the second offensive possession on a 2nd and 7, Bauer Sharp catches a pass, fumbles. Well, what does Bauer Sharp do? He gets up and goes and chases down the ball carrier to save a potential touchdown. Something not many people are talking about was a massive play. What did the defense do after that quick change? Incomplete pass, run for no gain, boom, stop, 42-yard field goal. The quick change didn't affect them at all. Just go through, look at some of the penalties that limited LSU. You can look at the end of the first half scenario where LSU didn't get points. As disappointing as that is to not get points in that situation, you got to come out in the second half and get a stop. LSU forces the missed field goal. They get the ball back. They score. Then you get the interception. Then you go down and you have more bad luck. Barry and Brown looks like he scores a touchdown. That comes off the board. You miss the field goal. The place is going bonkers. Damian Ramos is limping off the field. What is the defense? 7-yard run, loss of 2, incomplete pass, 3 and out, punt. Boom. Right back there, composure. When things are going bad, sudden change. And then look, even at the end of the game, after you got the lead back, Clemson had 2 possessions to try to go tie the ball game. They went 3 and out, and then when they drove down the field after you gave them the ball back, you got the big stop on the 4th and 4 there at the end of the game. The ability of this team to bounce back in the face of adversity in that setting was absolutely outstanding. Confidence, composure, those things will absolutely travel. So too will a running game. And that's something Brian Kelly talked about, that everybody, look, we all know that was a glaring issue a year ago.
I think we all knew what we needed to be better at from last year, and that was a running game that allowed Garrett the opportunity to be a complete player. We couldn't just be a one-trick pony and throw the ball over the yard. We had to control it, and when you play really good teams, you have to shorten the game in some instances. And I thought tactically we did a great job. Joe did a great job calling plays, sticking with runs, creative runs, different runs. Heck, I can't remember the last time Garrett ran it for 2 first downs on quarterback sneaks, things like that. So I know that sounds small, but the real difference here offensively was the ability to carve out a running game against a really good defense.
And by contrast, Clemson abandoned their run. They were unable to run the ball against LSU, and in the second half, abandoned their running game, which was kind of jarring to see it that way. For the game, LSU ran 29 times for 110 yards, and that's not sack adjusted, so that includes the sack yardage. Clemson ran 19 times for 32 yards. I believe they had 12 rushing yards in the second half. Clemson did. If you look at the splits, your ability to run the football, to control the clock. Look at the time of possession. I don't want to get bogged down in time of possession, because there were great offenses like Chip Kelly's blur offense at Oregon that always lost the time of possession by 10 minutes because they scored so quickly. But LSU controlled the ball for 37 minutes and 10 seconds. Clemson 22-50. You held the ball for 15 minutes more, a full quarter. You had the ball more than they did, which is it's a direct reflection on your ability to control the line of scrimmage, to stop their run and establish yours. Absolutely outstanding. And you got to give a ton of praise to this new makeshift offensive line for the job they did.
I think the other thing that gets overlooked is we controlled the second half with our offensive line, and that's a reworked offensive line. And so Braylon Moore at the center position, that's a transfer. Josh Thompson that came in from Northwestern. Those guys did a fabulous job in anchoring that offensive line as a veteran. And then we, obviously controlled the football. And I think they had, 9 minutes of in the second half. They had the ball for 9 minutes. And so you've got to win up front, offensive line, and then the 12 yards rushing.
If you look at the 2 guys in particular that Brian Kelly mentioned there, Braylon Moore was the 3rd highest graded player on Pro Football Focus on the offense, had a pass block rate of 85.8, a run block rate of 67.8. And then Josh Thompson graded out at an 84 pass block rate, 53 on the run, but a 59 overall. The point is, those 2 guys in particular in the middle kept Garrett Nussmeier protected, and you found ways to find space in the running game as well. Those 2 veteran guys, the 2 guys you went in the transfer portal, the guys who have confidence and composure, the guys who have been in tough spots before, in tough road games, went on the road and were unfazed by what they saw from Clemson. They were unfazed when they got down 3-0 or 10-3. They were unfazed when there were quick changes. They went out there and were pretty outstanding. So impressive to see how this group came together. The other side of the ball, there's also plenty to talk about. We'll hear from Brian Kelly on the defense as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to try Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. So head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. If it's player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds, FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the defensive side of the ball, and naturally that's a heavy focus of what Brian Kelly had to talk about, because we all remember 2 seasons ago, LSU led the country in total offense and scoring offense. Jaden Daniels won a Heisman Trophy on a 9-3 football team that was literally the worst defense statistically in the history of the program. You bring in Blake Baker, and now it has been a 2-year build to not just get back to relevancy, but to dominance. A year ago, LSU's defense was competent. This defense has the potential to be elite.
We've had offenses here the last few years that could move the football. We needed to complement with a defense that could stand the test. And you go on the road and play a top 5 team, you better bring a defense. And we knew that we were going to be that defense that needed to step up and step up big. I thought Blake called a great game. Our guys, each one of them came up and made individual plays. There's too many to mention, though. Mansour Deland got the game ball for some of his big plays. Again, I think it's just, we have the depth and we have the competitive depth that allows us to compete at a high level.
Mansour Delane got the game ball, as you heard Brian Kelly say there, the transfer from Virginia Tech. By the way, he was also the highest graded player on the defense from Pro Football Focus with an 81.3 grade. Mansour Delane was outstanding in this football game. Again, composure and confidence from veteran players. They didn't go just get a cornerback because they needed a cornerback. They got a veteran cornerback who had started for 2 years, who fit the culture of what they're trying to do. So it continues to be interwoven there. And the other thing Brian Kelly said about traveling on the road to a top 10 opponent, needing to bring a defense, think about a year ago. A year ago, you went on the road against number 14 Texas A&M and you allowed 38 points. Now that's not a top 10 team, but that's a top 15 team, and you allowed 38 points, and turnovers cost you in that football game. But it just continues to show you what can happen. You went to Ole Miss in 2023 and you lost 55-49. Ole Miss was number 20 in the country right there. So it's not just exclusively on going on the road to a top 10 team. If you're going to try to play any good team on the road, you're going to have to bring a defense with you. And LSU, by and large, hasn't been able to do that. And this certainly feels like a team more than capable of going into any road environment and playing just as capably as they did against a 5th-year senior quarterback that was a 3-year starter in Cade Klubnik. 3 wide receivers that are all returning. 2 of them preseason first team all conference. Of course, Williams suffered the unfortunate hamstring injury and missed the bulk of the game. But 4 starters returning on the offensive line with 120 combined starts. That was a really good offense you faced. A quarterback that threw for over 3,000 yards and 36 touchdowns a year ago and you completely put him in a 3-hour chokehold. That defense will absolutely travel. And how good was it to see Harold Perkins look like Harold Perkins again?
Harold is coming on. I mean, he's healthy. He's at a position that has been one where he's had success, and Blake can utilize him now as the player that he is. As you saw, he pressured the quarterback a lot. That allows you got to play some man-to-man. We weren't in that position last year to play a lot of man. And, of course, we lost him to the knee injury. So it's just a different roster with different players, and it allows Blake now the tools necessary to utilize Harold in the manner that he can best impact the game.
Think about the manner in which he best impacted the game. Harold Perkins in a red zone situation when Clemson had first and goal at the 4, came up with a sack for a loss of 10. When Cade Klubnik at the start of the second half started to get going running the football, what did LSU do? They had Harold Perkins spy on Cade Klubnik to limit his ability to run the football. And why are you able to do that? Because you can cover on the back end. But it allows Harold Perkins to go, as I say, be in his natural habitat. The ability to tackle in space, to turn in cover, to come on exotic blitzes, to come through with run fits when you need him, and he stuffs the stat sheet. It's what he did for his first 2 years in Baton Rouge. And I know we've talked about this before. If you're an everydayer, shout out, but you've heard me say this. As a freshman, Perkins had 72 tackles, 7.5 sacks, and 13 TFLs. As a sophomore in 23, and that was the atrocious defense, he had 75 tackles, 13 TFLs, and 5.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 5 PBUs. He had a pick. I mean, he had 6 passes defense to just 3 as a freshman. The point is, Perkins stuffed the stat sheet in his second year as well. It's just the defense was so bad, he wasn't making the impact on the game because the defense was so bad. He would make outstanding plays and he'd stuff the stat sheet. But the defense was just still awful. You couldn't cover on the back end, which you just heard Brian Kelly say there. And then last year, of course, they tried to move him back to off-ball linebacker, and then he suffered the knee injury. This is the year now where he's healthy, he's experienced, he's motivated, and he's in a position where he's going to be able to affect the game in so many different ways, in particular because you can generate a pass rush with your front 4 when you've got Patrick Payton and Jack Pyburn and Jamari Butler and Gabe Relaford and Bernard Gooden on the interior. You can generate a pass rush with your front 4. And you can cover on the back end. So it frees you up to do it with Harold Perkins, whatever you want, if you're Blake Baker. And that's got to have him absolutely salivating. Cade Klubnik was pressured on more than 50% of his dropbacks. More than 50, more than half the times Cade Klubnik dropped back, he was pressured. That's a 3-year starter and a 5th-year senior. Younger, more inexperienced, lesser quarterbacks will be even more affected than Cade Klubnik was. What an outstanding day to watch that game real time and have the opportunity to continue to dissect it as we move through. We have another piece of business to do here on the show, and it'll be our next show, which will be our Pro Football Focus grades. That'll be something that you can expect all season long. On the Monday after LSU plays, we'll break down the Pro Football Focus grades, tell you who did well, who didn't, all that sort of stuff. As I always say with PFF, it is a metric. It's not the metric. It's just something to consider. So we'll dive into Pro Football Focus on our next episode, and then we turn the page to LSU getting ready for Louisiana Tech. And we'll be right here every single day. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. Do us a favor. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.